Okay, so this is Ringwalk Media in association with Barclay Carter Racing and Redline Specialist Cars. Well, we've hopped on a plane, we've come over to Los Angeles, and look who we've managed to bump into. A legend in his own right, Roberto Diaz. Really, really nice to see you in this beautiful, beautiful country.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I'm honored. Thank you for the opportunity, for the time, and I hope you guys enjoy the great weather out here right now in the winter.
It's nice.
What amazing weather that we have right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's lovely. It's about 85 degrees out there, which is a lot warmer than it is in the UK.
I bet.
No wonder your good friend Jason Quigley spends a lot of time out here.
He loves it out here.
Well, listen, what I thought would be nice is if we could have a little bit of a catch-up on, for people who maybe don't know you that well. You've obviously been very well publicised as the golden boy fixer, the man who made all the big fights. But I'd like to know a little bit about the man, if that's all right. Tell me how you first sort of got into this wonderful business of boxing.
I was very, very fortunate. It's still sometimes I got to pinch myself to come to reality that how it happened. Many years ago, Christmas season, shopping, I bump into a fighter who I admired but never met. I had seen him on TV, but I was a big fan of Marco Antonio Barrera, very well known to the British.
Indeed, we know him well.
Very well. And he had just come off the loss to Junior Jones.
Yeah.
I bumped into him in San Diego during the Christmas season, and I told him basically as I would to, and again, I was not nothing in boxing. I just was a big fan, and particularly a big fan of his, to keep his head up. He had just lost the world title. Keep his head up, that he would definitely be back. And, you know, back in that day, there wasn't cell phones with a camera that I could take a picture. Hey, champ, can I get a picture with you? So I ran around the mall trying to find something for him to sign. Because, again, I was a big fan of his and really followed his career. Even before he had been the world champion, I had been following his career. I couldn't find anything for him to sign because I've always been very particular. If it's basketball, if it's boxing, if it's baseball, depending on where, you see a lot of fans sign my T-shirt, sign a dollar bill, sign the napkin. I wanted it to be related to the sport that they were in.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find anything at the mall. Hence that back then you couldn't find anything boxing related.
No.
I approached him again, maybe 30 minutes later, and I said, if I give you my address, would you mind sending me something signed? Again, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
He said, sure, give it to me. But like any other fan, you know, you don't expect it.
No, of course.
A couple weeks later, I get a package in the mail, T-shirt, studio photo, and it was a highlight. I mean, as
That's
a fan,
fabulous.
It was something huge for me, right? Fast forward, he's going to fight at a casino nearby San Diego. This is before the first Morales fight. This is back in 1999. So I drive out to the casino. It's Fantasy Springs, which I later ended up doing many fights there.
Yeah.
And he doesn't remember me by name, but this is incredible about Marco. He has such a tremendous memory. He looked at me, and I happened to be waiting to get in, and he's checking in to go into the back. This is before they had the arena. This is outdoors. And he looked at me and he said, San Diego. Well,
wow.
San Diego is where we had met in the mall.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, come on in. Let me introduce you to the team and everything, and took me in the back. We hit it off right there. I attended from there on many of his fights, including all three of the Morales fights. I was involved in the Nassim Hamed fight. And at the time, he had a promoter and a manager. But when he breaks away with them, and was actually the biggest signing at the time, Golden Boy was just starting.
Yeah.
Oscar De La Hoya was making his promotional company. Marco called me and said, are you going to stick with them or me? And I said, no, well, I met them through you, so I'm sticking with you.
Yeah.
And, you know, one thing led to another, and we had a great career with Golden Boy. He did very well. Went on, obviously, to retire. And then Golden Boy calls me. I get the call to go work with them. And at first, I couldn't sleep 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, what was that like? Because
It was
that's
very.
a big
I mean, at the moment when I got the call, I was actually in Johannesburg, Africa, for another fight. So I already had jet lag where I couldn't sleep. Then I get the call, would you take the job, which would have me move to LA, doing what? Well, signing new fighters, matching fighters. I hadn't done it before. I mean, with Marco, I knew about styles. I knew about turning down fights or accepting fights.
Yeah.
But not in that capacity. So there was a couple of days of no sleep, of questioning myself, of if this really what I can do. And then I said, you know what? And that's something that I tell everybody today, or since then, is if it's something you're passionate about and it's something you believe in yourself, you got to roll the dice, because sometimes that train of opportunity comes by once and it doesn't come by again. So after a couple of days of not sleeping and thinking, do I do this? Am I meant for this? And I said, roll the dice and let's go. I came out to LA, left my family back home.
Yeah.
At that time, we were living now in Sacramento. And I said, stay here. I don't want to move everybody, because if it doesn't work, then we have to move everything back. So I came out here about 8 months. And then I remember calling my wife and saying, hey, this is where I'm going to stay. The first couple of shows, I almost quit. The first one, the second one, it was just much more than I expected. It wasn't like many people think, the lights and the
It's not as
the
glamorous,
glamour.
is it?
No, it was a lot of stress, a lot of chaos, a lot of...
Yeah.
But, once I got through that, through the fire, you basically realize, most importantly, the show must go on.
Yeah.
Turn off fires and keep moving forward. And once I got through that, the first 2 shows, it became easy. It was 15 years.
It's a long time.
It is.
How many fights?
Well over 1,000.
Wow.
Well over 1,000. There was a time at Golden Boy where in 1 month we had 3 or 4 shows. There was weekends where we'd have 2 or 3 shows. I mean, Golden Boy was probably the busiest promoter in the world at the time.
Yeah.
With so many fighters. There was a time where we had when I was there, almost 100 fighters, which now you learn that that's too many, because if one's fighting, the other one's calling, and it's just too much, regardless of how many dates. But very busy. Even though it's 15 years, it equaled almost like 30 years, because every weekend there was a show.
Yeah.
Every weekend you had a fight fall off, restore the fight. But it fulfilled me, because it was something that I had never dreamed of. I love boxing. It's
and all
something
from
I grew
rolling the
up with.
dice.
All from rolling the dice. That's why the message a lot of times to the fans and to everybody is, if you're passionate and you love what you do and you have an opportunity to do it, don't make it about money. Get your foot in the door, show what you can do, and that'll turn into money or turn into what you feel fulfills you later.
Yeah.
But roll the dice, Sometimes opportunity only comes once. So I was very fortunate to have worked with some of the greatest athletes that ever stepped into the ring. Miguel Cotto, Ricky Hatton, David Hay, Bernard Hopkins, De La Hoya. I mean, so many. Canelo Alvarez, and now fast forward to some of the ones that we're now seeing with the Virgil Ortiz and Ryan Garcia and William Cepeda, Lamont Roach Jr., world champion today, Randy Caballero. I mean, so many that went through that list, bringing back the world title, heavyweight world title to America after so many years with Deontay Wilder is still one of my top accomplishments, because it just was like I had something to do with that. So very fortunate, learned a lot. I had already learned a lot from the fighter side with Marco Antonio Barrera, almost 10 years. All the sacrifices a fighter has to do when they're away from camp, not seeing family, not being at birthday parties, not being at funerals, not being at so many events because you're dedicated to that particular fight or camp, taught me the loneliness of a boxer's life. Taught me all the sacrifices that they put in. You know, a lot of times the fans say, oh, what an easy fight, because it ended in 1 round or 2.
But they've still done that 14 weeks away from their family.
Exactly, 100 rounds in sparring, injuries,
Yeah.
all the things they go through so that the fight looks easy. But in reality, you only know that it was nothing but hard, everything but easy, because of all the sacrifice and everything they go through. So you learn that aspect. Going into the promotional side, you learn that business side. So now, knowing both sides, where I am today as a manager and working with fighters, I try to build a bridge to meet in between, because a lot of managers are out there just more.
Yeah.
There's the back and forth with the promoter where, look, it has to be beneficial to the promoter who puts up all the money. So there has to be a happy medium. And I think knowing now on both sides, I try to explain to the fighter, this is where you have to meet. We have to meet in the middle. You want activity, you want building, you want this. You can't ask for more money.
It's got to be a little bit of conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that gives me a good advantage out here, because you understand both sides, not just your side. So again, it's sometimes, even though it's been so many years now in the industry, I still wake up and I'm like, time goes by very fast, because we say now 15 years, but it's like, wow.
It was like 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah. But it taught me a lot. Traveled the world, got to know so many athletes, so many different contacts with the organizations, with people all over the world.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for that, because the door was open because of who I worked for at the time. The door stayed open because of the relationships that I maintained through the years.
Well, I'll tell you, that's some start to our conversation. I'm really intrigued. You've worked with some of the greats. You reeled off some unbelievable names: Cotto, Hatton, Canelo. There's so many names that we could speak about. Tell me what your top 3 fights are that you put together that you were so pleased. And they don't necessarily have to be massive fights, but 3 fights that you put together in your 15 years that you were like, yeah, I'm so pleased I did those.
That's a difficult one, because at times, like when I'm asked, I'll go home and I'm like,
change your mind all the time.
I forgot this one, I forgot that one, because there's so many. And I say that very modestly because of so many, but I hate to forget one
ones
or
that
the
stand
other.
out then.
I'll tell you like right off, one that always stands out, I always mention, is Randy Caballero. Randy Caballero is a young man from the Coachella area.
Yeah.
We got the opportunity for him to fight a world title eliminator. He was ranked in a couple different organizations. And I called the dad and I say to him, there's a fight against the Kameda in Japan for a world title eliminator. Do you want it? And the father got very nervous, very good friend of mine, Marcos Caballero. And he says, well, can we win it? Randy had never fought really outside of Fantasy Springs, his hometown, where he was a big hero, where he was selling a lot of tickets, where he always looked good. And I said, I can't answer that.
No.
But I'll make sure you get paid well. And the father said to me, and I'll never forget, I don't care about the money. A lot of fathers care about the money.
Very rare.
A lot of fathers care about the money. If
Yeah.
the money's right, I don't care. We'll fight anybody. Okay, well, you're not stepping in the ring. But Marco said it's not about money. It's about my son winning. Can we win? And I had to answer that with my heart. As a promoter, it made sense to go.
Yeah.
As a father to father, I had to answer truthfully. And I said, I don't know. I don't know if we can win, because Randy's never fought outside of his home. Now, not only fighting outside of his backyard, fighting outside of his country, fighting in the other guy's country, everything is against him. I don't know.
And it doesn't matter how good a fighter is.
Correct. Sometimes you don't even get the decision.
Exactly.
Even if you do win, you don't get it. So I said, let me see how he fares outside of home. Yeah. Let's pass on this one.
Yeah.
And that was a very tough decision, Jonathan, or a tough advice, because what if the very next fight, he loses for little money, then you think, I did him wrong. If you're going to lose, you want to lose for the biggest money possible, right? So we go to Florida, and I match him against a Cuban kid. And the Cuban kid was tough. And he had all the support from the fans.
Yeah.
Randy won by knockout. I get a call from the other organization now. One was, I think it was the WBO, and now I get a call from the from the IBF saying, we have a title eliminator against so-and-so, again from Japan. Would you be interested? So I called the father and I said, we're good. I think we're ready. He goes, but one fight ago, I said, but I saw what I needed to see. So we go to Japan, fight for the world title eliminator. He wins by knockout. He's now the mandatory. We go to Monaco and fight for the world title against Stuart Hall, I believe it was his name, from the UK. And amazing fight, great fight, tough opponent, and Randy wins the world title. Why that's so special to me is one of my biggest, I guess, satisfactions in the matchmaking, in the promotional side, was when I saw the father and son get announced and knew. Because this is one fight for the fans, they see it, but this is a long life dream of the father and the son from 7 years old, 10 years old. You know, when they achieve this 20 years later, it's been something they've been working on their whole life. And when we were in the ring, I mean, you could see what the outcome should have been, but when it's announced and new from Coachella, Randy Caballero, and I see the first thing, father and son embrace, that satisfaction is unreal, unmatched to anything I've ever dealt with. Lamont Roach and his father, when he won the world title. I mean, so Danny Garcia, so many father and sons that have achieved that fulfills me with, regardless of all the other negatives that have happened, that's what makes it worth all the while. So that's one of the fights that really I separate. The other one, I gotta say, is Paulie Malignaggi going to the Ukraine. I
love Paulie.
Paulie going to the Ukraine. It was a fight that I worked on with the promoter and the WBA at a convention in Donetsk, Ukraine. We get the fight done. We go to Donetsk against a much bigger man, undefeated. And obviously we're in his hometown. It's a stadium, soccer stadium. And we're not supposed to win.
Nope.
And not only do we win, he wins by knockout.
I remember this
fight.
Paulie
doesn't knock anybody out, but he wins by knockout. And that was, to me, and you know, fans will laugh or everything, but that was, to me, Rocky against Drago in real life. You had the Italian going over to Ukraine and beating this undefeated big guy. I mean, not as big as Drago, but bigger than Paulie, and stopping him. And I remember them celebrating in the middle of the ring. Obviously, they're happy, and I'm telling them, guys, please, let's go to the locker room and celebrate,
let's get out of
not here. And that was very fulfilling to come back to the U.S. with the title that nobody expected us to win. And obviously, Paulie did his thing and won the title. So it was great. Deontay Wilder winning the heavyweight title. After so many years. And
he's such a nice guy, by the way.
He is. He's
a bit of a pantomime villain with the British fans, but he's a really good guy.
He's a good guy, and I remember the day he won the title, I took him the belt to his room. That was a bittersweet because he won the title on the 33rd fight. I had matched along with his team most of his fights. And there was a lot of criticism when he was coming up. Oh, he's not fighting anybody. He's fighting cans. I said, don't listen to it. Pay no attention. We're going to get there. And when it counts, you're going to win the world title. And that was the day his contract ended with Golden Boy. So it was bittersweet.
The exact same day?
That same day his contract was over. It was his last fight. So I take the belt to his room. I take the belt to his room to present it to him after the fight, of course.
Yeah.
And congratulate him once again and tell him it's been great working with you. Hope to see you again soon. Go make me proud. We shut everybody up. We brought the belt back.
Yeah.
And go do your thing. Make me proud. So it was really good. Every once in a while, I would send him messages even after. But it was a big achievement. And one of the others, not a particular fight, Puerto Rico, who's always been rich in boxing history.
Very much so.
Had a dry season time during a period where they had no world champions. I had a very good relationship with Miguel Cotto. He contacted me, said, would you be interested in working with me? Should I get my release with my company?
Yeah.
He was under contract. I said, absolutely, as long as you're free. He gets me the release a couple days later. We signed Miguel Cotto, and within a 6-month period, we were able to, together, Miguel being one of them, crown 4 world champions in 6 months. In a period that there was no champions. One of them was Miguel, Angel Acosta was the other one, Alberto Machado was the other one, and Jesus Rojas was the 4th one. So within a 6-month period.
And these are good world champions.
Yeah, and it was 4 world champions. So that gave me a little satisfaction to having, been part of that. So it just, doing some of these fights just taught me a lot about the fighters, taught me a lot about boxing, taught me a lot about relationships. Having worked with, I always mention Mauricio Herrera, a fighter that reminded me a lot of a throwback fighter from back in the day, because he fought everybody. Everybody. I mean, this is a guy who never turned down fights.
Just said yes.
Everybody. Not a big puncher, technical, but every fight was a war.
Yeah.
I remember seeing, even before I worked with him, pictures of him and Ruslan Probotnikov both in the hospital together and taking pictures, both of them swollen up and beaten up. And it was just incredible to work with him. He started boxing professionally late, yet went on to win a world title and make some money and retired. But it was always a pleasure to work with those kind of fighters. That I mentioned Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia was great to match for because fought every style, everybody, never turned down a fight.
What do you think Danny Garcia's best fight was? Because he's had so many good fights.
I think Lucas Matisse.
Yeah,
I think Lucas Matisse was a fight that everybody expected Lucas to win.
Yeah.
Lucas was a phenomenal fighter. And Danny, what he had was, Danny was like one of those fighters that he found a way to win. I think with Lucas, he was hurt early on and adapted.
Round.
Yeah, and adapted and boxed and went on to win. With Amir, Amir was having his way with him, and then boom, he knocked him out and got the win. So Danny always found a way to win and never turned down anybody. I saw him right now at the Lara fight. I went into the locker room to wish both of them well because I worked with both. And I remember remember, Danny, you fought them all. You've seen every style out there. So all the best to you. And obviously a lot, I wished him the best too. And I think what we saw was Lara's been active. Lara's the bigger guy. Danny had been out for a couple of years, going into a different weight class, fighting a tremendous counterpuncher. So it's bound, you need activities. Activity's key.
Yeah, of course it is. Well, listen, you talk about relationships you've built up over the years, and you and I have some mutual friends. Our friend Mr. Paul Speak, and of course the one and only 4-time world champion Ricky Hatton. Tell me about that relationship and how you all became to become friends, as they say.
The relationship with Paul
Yeah.
and the Hattons is one that is so strong and such a great relationship. Even though we don't see each other could be a couple years, when we see each other, it's like we seen each other a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I met them through Marco. I remember Ricky, this before he won his first world title against Costa Azul, coming out to Vegas at a Barrera fight, and he was a big Barrera fan. And I was like, wow, how?
Still is.
Why? Yeah. And I was like, curious. And it was like, oh, I'm the Mexican Manchester, and I fight like a Mexican. And sure enough, as I started to find out more about Ricky, it was amazing to see his style and his aggressiveness. But more than that, what really always caught me was the relationship he had with the fans. How loved he was, but how fortunate and how loved he was, because I'd never seen anything like that. Not before, not after. The amount of people that were coming out, the army of Manchurians that were coming out to support
I was there.
him.
35,000 Brits in Vegas.
People don't
Twice.
understand that. When it was recorded and reported that that many fans came out for the Mayweather fight, that number came from immigration, from tourism, of knowing how many Brits had come in that weekend. When the fight was made, I remember clearly Ricky going to Golden Boy and saying, how many tickets does the venue hold?
Yeah.
It was his first time fighting at the MGM Grand. And whatever their number, 16, 17,000 was given, he goes, okay, I want all the tickets. And they're like, well, wait a minute, you can't have all the tickets. Well, I have 2 times that coming.
Yeah.
And we need tickets for the public, we need tickets for the sponsors, we need tickets for the casino, we need tickets. You can't have, plus your Mayweather has a say. He goes, I need as many tickets as I can. And I think he ended up buying like 5,000 tickets, and they had to go home and do a lottery because there wasn't enough tickets for the fans.
If only the T-Mobile Arena was there now. Then.
You needed it even bigger than that. Ricky had a connection with the fans. Ricky was very special, very well loved, rightfully so. He earned it. I think he had a pint with at least everybody in Manchester, so everybody had a story about him. But the relationship with him began through Marco. Through the years developed. He was being promoted. I started helping him with sparring partners with no interest whatsoever, just as help, helping him with camp houses, because in the hotel he'd have allergies. So I'd help him get a camp house, my wife helped him get a cook. Eventually, when he was going to fight Mayweather, he wanted security. We got people from the police department to do on their off time and do security.
Just to look after him.
To look after him, make sure everything was good. So little by little, that relationship built. In fact, my very first time out at Manchester was before the fight. I took 4 sparring partners out there. I was 3 weeks. I've never been to anywhere colder. It was very cold. I only saw the sun probably once, and that was on TV. So it was probably a show from LA. But I had a great time. Everybody in Manchester had a story about Ricky. Very friendly. Camp was great. No excuses. I saw how hard Ricky worked. So again, that relationship with Matthew, Ricky, the parents, everybody, Carol and Ray and everybody, it just became a family away from home. So eventually, because of the relationship, I went over real quick. I set up the meeting with Golden Boy after his contract was over, with his right before that fight, and they did a handshake deal. And I believe that really is what got the attention of Golden Boy, because right after that meeting, which was a big signing for Golden Boy, is where I get the call to come work for Golden Boy. Wow. And I think a lot had to do with the signing of Ricky. It wasn't a condition of mine. No. But I believe
definitely
that's
helped.
what it helped, because obviously it, at the time, is one of the biggest fights that could be made. Undefeated. I remember the name of the card was Undefeated, because you had 2 of the biggest names, both undefeated, and 2 countries colliding. So it was something very big for Golden Boy, and I think that's what opened the door. Right after that, I signed David Hay to Golden Boy, and here I thought, wow, I was going to be bringing Mexican fighters. I'm bringing the British fighters, but a lot had to do with the relationship with Paul and the Hattons, and that opened many doors. And then also being part of the return when he lost to Mayweather, the very next fight in Man City Stadium. I had to do with matching him with Lascano and working that fight, and it was just amazing to be in that arena and really see how many fans. And if I remember correctly, it was sold out within, like 50,000 people had bought tickets within the first 48 hours.
Yeah, I think it sold out in
a week
40 hours.
Yeah, it was something incredible.
55,000.
It was incredible, and to be there that night, and then I was nervous because if you remember, Ricky had got rocked, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to be a part of this. Lascano came in wearing red in the City Stadium, and it was like, did he do this on purpose, or was it just coincidence? But it was great just to be a part of that whole Ricky Hatton era. Was very fulfilling. I believe it should have gone longer. It should have been done a little bit different. Now, obviously, it's easier to say now that it's over, but I think it could have benefited everybody if it would have been done a little different. But you don't know until the time. It's the same thing as when Canelo fought Mayweather. I really thought Canelo was going to beat him. And if you try to ask to redo it, I'd probably say, yeah, let's do it again. He didn't win, but he grew, he learned, and he became a bigger fighter and more known. I remember with Ricky, he's going to fight Mayweather, and I remember going to the outlets. We're now in Vegas, and American fans didn't know who Ricky was prior to the fight, but the 24/7, the promotion. So now they're coming up to Ricky, hey, you're that British kid that's going to fight Mayweather. Beat him, please. A lot of Americans were now knowing because of the promotion, because of the 24/7. And that's where you said, wow, he's getting bigger and bigger and becomes a global star. If only he could beat him.
I remember being there for those two fights against Pacquiao and Mayweather. And I've never experienced ever again such camaraderie between the oppositions. America and the UK were just friends out having a beer. And I don't think I've ever seen that. Maybe with Tyson Fury a little bit, but I don't think it'll ever be repeated.
I don't think we'll see it again. I mean, there's these generational fighters that come once in a lifetime. Yeah. You could compare to saying, because Calzaghe, probably one of the biggest, most accomplished. However, he didn't have that following. Even when he came and fought Bernard Hopkins in Vegas, I think it was expected. Okay, here come all the British, just like Ricky. And it wasn't even a quarter of it. As great as a fighter as he was, Ricky had this, it wasn't boxing fans. No. They were Ricky fans. Yeah. They were Man City fans. They were the soccer fans. Or they played darts with him or had a pint with him. They had something that he just was unbelievable.
Wasn't it good to see him and Marco Barrera a couple of years ago do their exhibition in Manchester Arena? I mean, I was very, very lucky to be part of that and do the ring walk with him, which is, for me personally, was a lifetime ambition. I know it's very silly to some people, but you don't understand what it was like in that era. So to just experience that, there were 10,000 people in that arena to watch that fight.
Okay, so even with Ricky, I had the conversation, and he asked me this before the exhibition with Marco, what I thought about all these exhibitions coming out. I said, look, if it's two fighters, two ex-champions, two fighters doing it, I have no problem with it because it's entertainment at the end of the day for the fans. What I didn't like was certain fighters doing exhibitions with guys that were never fighters, with a YouTuber or with I said, that I don't like because it's two different things going. So he agreed, and it actually started where it was going to be Miguel Cotto against Ricky.
Right.
Paul and I had been talking, trying to get that done. Miguel Cotto had originally started conversations of doing it against Juan Manuel Marquez. That fell apart. So then I talked to Cotto and Hatton. This is a fight that never happened,
Yeah.
as professional
Correct.
fight. So it's like, let's do the exhibition. Maybe we'll do one in New York and we'll do one in UK. And it took too long because we couldn't get the promotion. We couldn't get. So eventually, Cotto said, "You know what? I'm out. The fire's not there anymore." And then Ricky went on to do the exhibition with Marco, and I thought that was great because at the end of the day, it's two very familiar names to the UK. Obviously, one very well loved, one not so
Both-
one loved,
both
but,
very well
but
loved,
very,
actually.
very well respected.
Yeah, very much so.
And they knew each other, so it was going to be like, hey, let's go and do an exhibition, but not try to take
And it was
each other's
funny.
head off.
It was funny because I was actually filming that for Ricky's media, and I'm hanging through the ropes, and I can hear what they're saying. And Marco's like, "Ricky, no," and Ricky's like, "You hit me like that again, and you're getting one." And they were actually properly having a little go at each other. And it was just so good to see.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Well, I mean, obviously they respect each other, but what people don't understand is it turns into an exhibition. It starts out as an exhibition,
They can't help it, can they?
but that's what they do. And
Yeah.
as much they could be pulling punches a little bit, but one feels like, oh, okay, you went a little bit too hard. Okay, let me get.
There was a bit of that going on.
Yeah, well, that's what eventually, because there was talks of Marco and Eric Morales doing
Yeah.
it again in an exhibition. I remember calling the brother, and I said to the brother, Morales' brother, and I said, hey, Diego, it's not going to be an exhibition. Both of these guys are going to come at each other.
It doesn't
because
matter what you say.
Regardless of how many years have passed, they still, will make that fourth into a war. So eventually it didn't happen. But I mean, that's something that I said won't be an exhibition. That'll be a fight.
Well, listen, let's go to the modern day because you've had a brilliant career up to now. You were a little bit unwell a little while ago. Hopefully you're okay now. You look well.
Thank you.
And it's good to see you on your feet. But something like that kind of, I guess, propels you into the next stage of your life. And you've chosen to go out and manage boxers of all things. Tell me about what you're doing and why you've decided this is for you. Because I remember speaking to you about 18 months ago and you're like, I was going to take my time, enjoy myself, see what I'm going to do. And then 12 months later, here you are with your own boxers.
So it was 15 years at Golden Boy.
Yep.
Great years again. It was, I learned a lot, learned and lived the dream of working with, like I said, some of the greatest athletes to step in the ring. After 15 years, the first couple months were, okay, I'm on vacation, because really your
It's a long
vacation
time.
was closed down the office for 2 weeks during the holidays of Christmas. But the rest of the year, you're so busy.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be like, all right, I'm going to take a couple months off on vacation and do whatever I want now. After the 2 or 3 months of vacation, you need to do something.
Yeah.
No, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do? I got several calls from different promoters to, hey, is it true? Is it true? Come work for me, come work for me. Some small promoters, some big promoters. And that was the logical direction of going into matchmaking with another promotional company. But it was like, okay, do I want to start over again? And no matter what, you're going to start from scratch. But it was like, do I want to be back on the road again every week? What the fans need to understand too is, it's not just on to the next show. It's receiving calls. The opponent or one of the fighters is not on weight.
Yeah.
He missed his flight. He didn't do his medicals. He didn't pass his medicals. He got cut in sparring.
It's
There's
24
an
hours
injury.
a day.
It's 24
Yeah.
hours, always fixing something. You could have a whole card done 2 months before.
And then it
But
falls
come
apart.
fight week,
Yeah.
you lost a couple fights. So that's where, if you know you're going to lose them, you have backups. But you never know until the last moment when they're not going to make weight, when they get injured, when they let me fight or let me train through the injury and get to
See
a
how
point
I go.
where,
Yeah.
I'm
And
not
then
going to be
there's-
able to fight. I'm
Yeah.
pulling out. So always the fires are turned on fight week, and that's where the stress comes. Now, sometimes I worked better under stress, but now at an older age, it was like,
You got to look after yourself as well.
yeah, and then all those years of not being at some type of family event or being there, it was like, you know what? That saying of work smarter, not harder, really came back, and I said, all right, if I go to another promoter, I can't be saying, I'm not going to go to this show, I'm not going to go to that show, I'll work from home. Really, what drove me and always was fulfilling to me, even in the promotional side, was developing fighters and working with fighters and being close to the fighters. The relationships with the Quigleys, the relationship with the Hattons was always because of the relationship directly with the person. So what better way? Let's start working as management. And then I was fortunate enough, I had worked through my years at Golden Boy, I had worked with a company, a management company, Jason Quigley's, which is Shear Sports Management, Ken Shear and Lyle. And a couple months after, they reached out to me and we had a good conversation and said, would you like to join Shear Sports? And I said, what capacity? Well, help us restructure the company, manage some of the fighters, get them into the organization, sign new talent. Very similar to what I did when I started at Golden Boy. Start helping and building. And I had known them through the years as, and I say it, worked with so many different managers.
Yeah.
And I say it because it's true, is they stood out as some of the best management that I ever worked with. They fought for their fighter, but it wasn't always just about money, 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 money. And they took care of their fighters, regardless if they were fighting or not. And that really, I remember throughout the years having a very good relationship with them because they were very transparent. And you don't see that all the time. You see it most of the time, but not all the time.
Yeah.
So it was like, no brainer. This is what I want to do. And at the same time, with working with Shear Sports or coming on with Shear Sports, a lot of the fighters that I had worked with that I thought had retired started calling me. Pablo Cesar Cano, Jorge Linares, a lot of them started calling me. And to be honest, I was like, guys, there's a reason we retired. Stay retired, enjoy, and do all their...
Be alive, guys. Yeah.
And they were like, no, I need one more. Ronnie Rios. And a lot of them started calling me because of the relationship of years before. And a lot of fighters that I didn't know reached out to me and it started, hey, can you help me? Can you help me? So it was very humbling experience to see that, sometimes we take it for granted or how you treat people and everything, but
there's a lot of love in the room for you.
There is. And it was very humbling and very gratifying at the same time because it was like, wow, young kids that I wouldn't think, okay, when I was at Golden Boy, hey, can you help me? Because, you're the door to get me there. But now that I'm not, still reaching out to me. I just signed 2 brothers from Texas that I have so much belief in what they're going to do. And we just signed them to Shear Sports, is the Bocanegra brothers. These are 2 young kids that have so much talent, but I've said it in the past, it's not just talent.
No.
It's discipline and their talent together that I believe has a bright future. And for them to send out messages and reach out and young kids and older guys coming back, hey, I heard you're managing, can you help me? World champions reaching out to me. And it's like, wow, something was done right over the 15 years. So
you did okay.
It's very gratifying. And just to be a part of it's just, I'm doing what I enjoy at a pace that I can do it. You mentioned earlier, my health took a little dive. Again, because there's been almost like every 10 years something comes around. Last year I had a massive heart attack. It's called the Widowmaker.
Yeah.
And doctor told me 12% of the people that get it make it. So I'm very very fortunate to be here with you today. I feel great.
You look great.
I feel very healthy now. Obviously, made some changes, lost a lot of weight, but it opened up. It's like, okay, in the past I had a major car accident when I was 18.
Yep.
Broke both my legs. Was told they were going to try to save my right leg, but probably not going to walk again. Made it through that. A few years later, at 32, 33, had stage 3 cancer, survived that. And then this recent one, it was like, it's not my time.
No.
And why isn't it my time? So many people don't get a second or third chance, and now the second or first or second chance, and now I'm on my third. Why? And I said, because I'm not done yet. There must be a reason, and that has to be to help, to pass it on, to help them achieve their dreams. And that gave me the motivation to say, okay, you know what? You're giving me another chance, God. Let's take full advantage of it. So right now, I feel very comfortable. I feel very healthy. I do my exercise and try to eat as healthy as I can, and just really taking this role of your career is in my hands.
Yeah.
Now let's go make your dreams come true.
It's a nice way to put things, isn't it? It's nice to be able to do that as well. I mean, you know what the boxing world is like, especially at the moment where there's lots of change. You've got Riyadh coming in and offering crazy amounts of money to boxers to come and box, and who knows where that will go. There's some positives. And so far, some of the biggest fights in the world are being made that we never would have seen. I'm sure you'd back that up. But who knows what will happen at the lower levels, and that's the bit that I feel you can have a really positive impact on those guys that need some guidance from someone who's been there and seen it. So I'm exceptionally excited to see where you go. And you're working with Mr. Quigley, of course. Now, we have a little bit of banter, me and Jason, because he's a good lad. But on a serious note, he's an incredibly good boxer. But he tells me he's still got one more in him. You're gonna get him on one more fight? Because he nearly did, didn't he?
We were close.
Yeah.
We were very close. He called me and said, Robert, get me the Pacheco fight.
Yeah, that's the one.
And I said, really? Is it a money thing? And that's something that I've been telling these guys when I mentioned Ronnie Rios, Jorge Linares, Cano. I don't want it to be money motivated, because that's the wrong reason.
100%. You make the wrong decisions as well.
Exactly. If it's just money, or go get a job, and it's hard. It's hard because this is all they've done for many years. It's the easiest way, quote unquote, because it's nothing easy by getting in the ring and receiving punches. But they've all answered the right way. No, it's not a money thing. So I understand when they come back with that. It's a personal thing. I know that wasn't my best. I know I could do better.
Still got more.
Exactly. And Jorge, when we went to Liverpool, he came up short against Catrell.
Yeah.
However, he was fulfilled, and I saw it in the ring.
He left everything in that ring.
He did everything he had to in camp. He enjoyed the press conference. He enjoyed the weigh-in. He enjoyed everything, the walkout. And he tried to win. And he said, I was at the top level again, not against just any opponent. And no stone was unturned, and I came up short. Now I can walk away.
Yeah.
With Jason, he said, no, it's not a money thing.
No.
I said, okay, if it's not a money thing, then I'm going to go to Matchroom. We negotiated a little bit. They told me, okay, we'll get back to you. There is another name, which was Sulecki, and they chose Sulecki, which is fine. I think it made sense personally to me that he fought Jason, because now you have, if Pacheco would have fought Jason, now there's a comparison between Pacheco and Berlanga.
Yes.
Should I'm not saying Pacheco wins, but should he have beaten Jason? Now there's a comparison. Did Pacheco stop Jason, which Berlanga didn't? Did Pacheco go the distance? Now there's a comparison to start working in that fight, Pacheco against Berlanga. Now, of course, Jason could have spoiled all that, but had Pacheco won, you have promotion for that next outing, which would have been Pacheco and Berlanga, which would have been a good big fight as well.
Yeah.
So we didn't get it done. There's still the possibility, but every day that goes by makes it harder. I think both for the possibility because of inactivity and because Jason, obviously, with getting older and older. But I really, and I have to say it, Jason's doing an amazing job outside now.
Yeah.
I spoke to him this morning. There's plans of promotion. He wants to get very well involved. He has a good eye. Not just because you step in the ring, do you have a good eye. Jason has a good eye. And more importantly, not only a good eye, but a good connection. A good connection.
He's very easy to talk to. He's very easy
Correct.
to
And
speak
the
about the right
fighters,
things.
Connect with him.
Yeah, they do.
I saw him right now in Liverpool. Obviously, we had James McGivern on the card.
Love James.
Very, very good fighter.
Great
doing
prospect.
very well. But then I saw him in the locker room with Ronnie.
Yeah.
And without having to tell, Jason's been in the ring, been on the on the fighter side, now being on the manager side. He's doing things without having to tell him that he knows benefit the fighter. Trying to make things easy and comforting. And when he asked me, Robert, can I walk over to the arena with you guys? James had already fought in the early afternoon, so now I want to be there to support Ronnie. I said, of course. They knew each other through the years at Golden Boy. So now he's in the locker room. Next thing you know, we didn't have more ice. They were trying to find ice. The promoter, everybody's telling them there's no more ice. The commission's no more ice. I don't know where Jason went. Came back. I don't know if he went to one of the stores.
Went to the bar, probably knowing Jason.
And they came back with a bag of ice. So he without telling him, hey Jay, because I would never go, hey Jay, can you help with this? On his own.
Done.
So that showed me his role as a manager. He takes it very serious because as a fighter, he knows what he liked. And now he's doing that.
I can see a little bit of you in him as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that because he sees me. We have such a great bond. We're very close. Today, we spent probably about 45 minutes, an hour on the call. And at the end, he said, thanks. I learned a lot from the call. So when you're working with somebody that you're seeing is asking the questions because he wants to know and learn and he's putting it into, it feels good. It feels good to, again, pass it on. And I know he's going to go and run with it, not just, okay, and then do the opposite. So it's very enlightening of where he is. And that, again, has me more against him fighting because done, over, change the page, on to the next chapter.
Are you listening, Mr. Quigley? Pack it in now and do what you're good at.
Unless we get a lot of money, Jay.
You told me it wasn't about the money.
No, but
maybe
like
one last blowout.
I said, look.
If it's Vegas, let's do it.
Unless it's life-changing that could do,
of course,
turn your life around and set you up. But it's not at that point anymore. So it's like, move on. You're going to make it 10 times fold.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed that Sheer Sports and yourself keep evolving and keep doing good in boxing because you don't hear very much of that anymore. There are some very good promoters out there in the smaller hall eras that are bringing good fighters through. But it's nice to hear that from across the pond, you're also doing the same thing. And, as a boxing fan, someone who works in boxing, it's nice to hear that some of your legacy from Golden Boy and all your work will continue on with those youngsters for the future.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, something that promoters need are management, you know, because they can't be babysitting the fighter and making sure he gets to the medicals and making sure he gets to the catches the flight. You know, it's such a stress and a headache. But when you have management that's on top of it, and we have a great team, you know, Irma is running around getting the medicals done, making sure the fighter gets his credential list in, and it just makes that job for the promoter so much easier when you have to deal with the manager, not directly with the fighter. You tell the fighter, show up at 1 o'clock. Oh, I thought it was 1 o'clock on Wednesday, not Tuesday. And having that team behind you, making sure you get from point A to point B on time, proper, and ready to go, it makes all the difference in the world. It makes life easy for the promoter. And that's what our goal is, making sure the fighter's there on time, the fighter's there on weight, the fighter does his obligations, making life easy for the promoter, but also making sure our fighter is comfortable and ready to go.
So if you could leave one message for somebody coming up in the boxing industry, whether it be a fighter, a promoter, anybody that's just coming up from your experience, what would your message to that person be?
I think the message is always don't let anybody tell you you can't, because you can. Dreams do come true. Take it from me. I was a fan that turned very lucky and followed that dream. And you know, when Marco told me to come work with him, it was the same thing. I didn't sleep for 2 or 3 days thinking, well, what if I ruin his career? And this is after being friends. I almost turned around and said, no, you need somebody that can do it and that's done it before. You're already a former world champion, and he had already beaten Naseem Hamed when I basically come into the promotional part with him at Golden Boy. But again, you have to roll the dice. And even in our very first fight with Golden Boy, if you remember, he loses to Manny Pacquiao. So I thought that was my debut and retirement. I thought it's over. We're going to get cut. Golden Boy gave him another chance, and Marco had a tremendous second chance with them and went on to beat Eric Morales the third fight and went on to, you know, have a tremendous career, successful, made a lot of money, and then eventually, you know, retirement had to come. But follow your dream, reach for the stars, and enjoy it, because if it's a job that you really enjoy, it's not a job. It's not a job. And it gets, regardless of the hurdles, again, I almost quit the first 2 shows. The first 2 shows I almost quit.
Think of the fights we'd have missed. If you'd have quit in the first 2 shows, think of the fights that we would have missed.
But because I didn't quit, and those 2 shows happened between January and March. So it was right early on. And yet 15 years later, I stuck it through, and now it's been a couple years, so 17 years later, and I'm still in boxing, and I love it. And I'll probably, now I understand, when fans say, why is Bob and Don still doing this with all the money and it? When they stop doing it, it's over. They're going to continue doing it until their last breath of air, because once it's in your veins, it's like a drug, but it's a good one. And it's the passion that we have for boxing. And I love boxing, and to all the young kids, it's the same thing. Believe it's all going to be about discipline and hard work, because dreams do come true.
Well, there we are. A superb end to what has been a fascinating hour. We wish you all the very best of health. It's good to see you looking so well, and we hope that the next few years is successful with you and Sheer Sports and the management of the fighters, and that people benefit from your experience. And from a boxing fan to another boxing fan, thank you for all the years of great fights and entertainment that you provided for us. Roberto Diaz, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. I really appreciate the time. To all the fans back home in the UK and the other side of the pond, hey, we'll see you hopefully very soon once again.